Right. Now we will, and so the World Bank has said the COVID-19 India caught India as its economy was already slowing down and it was weakened by financial sector problems. And he said the Modi government's swift and comprehensive response, a strict lockdown, complemented by social protection measures for the poor and support for the businesses, was contradictory and also was welcome. Now we are probably joined right now by Professor Dr. M.C. Das from Vijayawada, who is an economist, and he will be discussing threadbare this report from the World Bank, as also how India can make an effective change in terms of the economy, in terms of the sun. Professor Das is an economist. He is a teacher also of economy, and he has been crucial in terms of teaching management education in Vijayawada. And he, of course, will be online with us in a short while of time. We will be discussing with him several issues, including the fact that the World Bank report, which has said that India's economy contract by maximum, which was like way far below what was expected in 1991, and therefore India needs to really up the ante and make things really possible. Now, one question which definitely Dr. Das will be expecting from me is the fact that how soon can Indian economy bounce back, given that economy and several people are out in the streets. There is a relaxation in terms of movement, and several governments also have lifted lockdowns in several segments. Of course, segments such as schools and colleges and education, and have yet to find a kind of release from the lockdown. But we'll also be finding out which sectors have been removed from the lockdown mechanism and how they are performing. I think Professor Das is joined us from Zoom. Professor Das, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, please. Good evening, Mr. Sunil.
Good evening, sir. I can hear you loud and clear. Your voice is very clear to me. My first question is, welcome to the show. But is the World Bank report, which says that India's economy would contract, and the fact that this contraction would be akin to what happened to India in 1991, from 1989 to 1991, which was the period of the balance of payment crisis, when India had to mortgage its gold to Bank of England and Bank of Japan. Are we seeing that kind of contraction, or is the World Bank being too optimistic or too pessimistic on India?
Mr. Sunil, in fact, the downtrend in the Indian economy started in 2019-20 itself,
Okay.
because the GDP was, I think, was at 4.2% against the expectations of 8%. So even before the COVID period, there was a downtrend. The industrial production also had a major setback. Only agricultural sector is hopeful. It is doing well. Both service sector and the industrial sector, there was downtrend. It was about to pick up. In the meantime, this pandemic has come like a bludgeon on the head.
Yeah. The final blow. The final blow, so to say.
Like a blow.
Yeah, the
like
straw.
A bludgeon.
Yeah, the straw on the camel's back.
Yeah. But now at one time, World Bank estimated that during 2021, it would be rather 1.9 GDP growth. But now it is minus 9.6.
Yes.
And financial year 21, actually about 5.4%. I think the economy is totally disturbed because of the lockdown, which people. But I'm sure Indian economy will pick up. I'm hopeful, because our strength is our agricultural sector. Even during the Corona period.
Agricultural sector, fortunately, has been doing well. But right now, though the inflation is at 7%, I think the buying capacity of the people somehow considerably gone up. That's why it has resulted in the soaring of prices of critical commodities, even the vegetables, and now, of course, onions has become a big, what shall I say, threat to the common man. Prices at 100 to 150
Yes,
per
sir.
kg. So, I think somehow compared to the other economies, India is okay. I mean, the experts say that India and China will be most powerful nations after COVID period. Okay, setting aside that, even Raviraj Rajan has given a statement that
Reserve Bank of India when compared to the central banks of other countries. Now, I think a total revamping is to be made, and a sort of rethinking by the central government and the state governments has to be made. A sort of rethinking has to be made.
What kind of
These
yeah.
SOPs,
You go on.
these SOPs, I'm sure they are bringing down the productivity, like depositing money is good. Their purchasing power increases naturally, economy gets a boost up. But the productivity is
rather easy money, or people are just waiting for their accounts to be created with money instead of working. So that work culture, unfortunately, is dwindling. That is not good for the economy. It's not good for the society also. It's not good for the people also. Unfortunately, most of the policies, even economic policies, are election oriented. That is, I'm sure, will affect very adversely the Indian economy. The politicians, they have to change their philosophy.
But Professor Das, are you saying that the kind of economic support and announcements by the government since the start of the lockdown, they can actually make things worse? In fact, the government has announced several kind of initiatives for the medium-scale industries and SMEs. So do you think that kind of support would actually would kind of suppress production and creativity and also the need for production? Or is
The incentives given to SMEs, I'm sure, would yield some good results, but it has not yet gained the momentum. That's what I feel.
right?
In fact, some of the SMEs, they have yet to come out of even before they go to school, they were in troubled water. It takes time for them to come out of that in spite of the, what shall I say, incentives given by the government. So
Right.
it takes some time for these SMEs to pick up and yield results.
Do you think all the SMEs are actually are in a position to benefit from this kind of impetus given by the central government to small scale industries, or do you think this is a scheme which is a kind of knee jerk, which is required, of course, but in terms of its wider impact, it has not been thoroughly analyzed, and there are more deserving sectors of the Indian economy which need this kind of support?
This support, what I understand, rather what I hear from the people who are managing SMEs, they they're not really receiving what you call the benefits so far. It's still, it is still, it has to take a shape. It is still, I think, at the policy level only.
Yes.
That's the, unless these SMEs really receive that benefit, we can't expect any results from them.
Okay. Now, sir, what you're saying, Professor Das, is something which was echoed by several other speakers on the show earlier. And let me also just share with you what was the summary that at that point of time. We were told that although several people who are aware of these support systems from the government, they have managed to utilize this, they know the processes, but there are larger section of population of the SMEs and MSMEs who don't know about these specific measures, or whose application or whose approach to get this support has been hampered by lack of awareness and also kind of a slow down on the part of the lending banks and government institutions to lend this credit. Do you think that could be one of the reasons, or also the fact that because as a businessman you ought to be aware of what kind of support the government is going to give, but do you think a kind of lacuna exists in terms of what the MSMEs and the small scale medium industries are accessing in terms of information, and should the government do more to provide a wider publicity in terms of what support they want to give?
Mr. Solis, there are two things that are actually in the way of support to the SMEs. Number one, there are bottlenecks between the government policy and the receiver, the end receiver, that is the SMEs. That is one thing. They are not circulating. The policy is practically not percolating to the ground level.
Absolutely, sir.
That is number one. Number two, as you say, there is lack of awareness among the people who are the entrepreneurs, the people who are managing these SMEs. And they don't have that awareness. Some of them not, what shall I say, not well informed. Some of them are even not educated. Okay, they have been running the units, running off the bank, getting loans and all these things all these years. But right now, the incentives announced by the government, I don't think they are really aware of it. Maybe more publicity, rather personal communication to those units. The personal communication, not what should I say, communication through media, personal communication. Well, these are the incentives that are given to you. You better start your industry, or you better increase your production.
Yes.
That sort of thing, I think, will give better results.
Also, Professor Dr. M.C. Das, most of these SMEs are, and probably 80% of the workforce is employed, organized labor is employed by this particular section. Don't you think it's incumbent on the government to speed up the kind of support they need to give, because you recognize the fact that the support is needed. I recognize the fact that this kind of support will ensure greater employability and small upturn in the economy. Is there any other sector which needs a similar kind of support as much as this small sector?
Mr. Sunil, in our country, I think next to agriculture, it is real estate that is providing a lot of employment.
You mean construction, sir?
Yes, real estate to the construction workers, to the welders, to the fitters, to the electricians.
To the builders of the roads also,
yeah,
road builders.
Next to agriculture, the biggest employer in our country is the real estate sector. So I think the sort of boost up is to be given to the real estate sector. Also because the cement industry is depending on that, the steel industry is depending on that. What not? I mean, it is another big employer. Right now, the country is facing a problem with 5.4, I think, unemployment percentage. But some experts say it is 13%. Or it may still go up. So, the real estate sector, I'm sure, is to be given with all regulations. Of course, RERA is there to regulate, but it should be still made stronger. And then giving a sort of boost up to the real estate industry, I'm sure the economy will get a sort of step up.
Right. Professor Das, also what do you think of the economic scenario of the two states, especially of Vijayawada where you live, and also of Hyderabad, two big metro centers, and what is the kind of economic activity happening in these two cities, and is there any kind of an specific inputs both these cities required, either commonly or jointly or separately?
Vijayawada has traditionally been a trading center, and Hyderabad is a production center. That is the biggest difference between Hyderabad and Vijayawada.
Okay.
Vijayawada, what shall I say, business depends on. I happen to be the editor of Chamber News published by Vijayawada Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
Yes.
So I know about this strength or business attitude, business philosophy there. They want to buy in the morning and
Sell it by evening.
And make a profit.
Right.
So it is more of trading activity.
Trading activity, yes.
Yeah, and there are people who make lakhs of rupees every day keeping two telephones.
Right.
Okay, they are called commission agents.
Yes.
Stammering from Kerala. So he sells even that what do you call lorry receipt, the lorry.
Yes.
Okay, and then makes money. He actually buys for, he doesn't even pay. He just buys for 1 lakh, sells it for 1,50,000 rupees.
Fair enough.
Without even touching the product.
Yes. Or examining it.
Just not touching the product. Only he gives that LR so that that buyer, actual buyer, will go and pay the money and take it from the parcel office or from the parcel services. So that type of trading philosophy, that's why industry is not picking up in Vijayawada city, unfortunately.
But sir, sorry to interrupt you. I know you will probably continue after this. But wouldn't that kind of money which is generated by these traders actually form the seed capital for the establishment of several industries, range of industries in that particular town? Because here you have wealth being generated, and naturally it is significant that any trader would migrate and become a businessman or the owner of a factory. Why is that transition not happening?
It is an attitudinal problem. As you say, that type of money which is generated could be invested in the industry. Because the industry, the gestation period is more. You can't invest in the morning and get profit in the evening. At times, if it is a small scale, even you have to wait not less than for a year or 2 years. If it is a medium-sized industry, at least you have to wait for 5 years to reach the break-even and then start getting profit. Similarly, if it is a large-scale industry, I think at times it takes 10 years or 15 years to reach the break-even point and start making profit.
Absolutely.
So it's a sort of, in industry, generally you have capital gain, more of capital gain. Whereas in trade, you have revenue profit. The immediate profit is revenue profit. But now there is a change. There is a change, no doubt about it. The young generation is actually moving towards passion, towards productive activity. That's a good sign. Even in Vijayawada and Krishna district, the younger generation is now thinking more of productive activity, production. That is the industrial culture. So this is trading culture. And the business of Vijayawada always depends on the agricultural production in the surrounding area. If crop is good in 1 year, the business in Vijayawada city will boost up. If crop fails in the surrounding agricultural land, Vijayawada business, it falls down.
Yeah, all the more.
That is the trend.
And all the more reason to diversify now.
Yes, exactly. So the industrial culture has yet to what shall I
Percolate.
say, sprout out in Vijayawada
Interesting.
and in Krishna district.
Sir, now interesting version, sir. But what has been the effect of lockdown? Because the way you describe it, I see because much of the trading is happening in agriculture goods, I'm presuming, and also some part of it in logistics and transport. The lockdown must have not had a major effect in terms of turnover of the cash, turnover of money, and also employability of people in this particular sector over the last 7 months.
Lockdown has severely affected the middle class.
Middle class, yes.
Yes. The middle class, they are sandwiched, I think, between the rich and the poor. Right. Generally, middle class people, they spend tomorrow money. The poor people spend today money, and rich people spend yesterday money.
Yes.
This middle class people, most of the, what shall I say, the assets they have in the house, EMIs, TVs, EMIs, service EMI, and even their apartment is, they have to pay
EMIs, yes.
almost 60% of their, what shall I say, 60% their monthly income goes for rent and
Groceries, okay, EMIs, okay.
EMI. So the most affected are the class in this pandemic, this lockdown. Or of course the daily wage earners, they are very badly affected. And one, what shall I say, they were suffering in the dark clouds. Now labor is moving from cities to the villages. So agricultural production, I think it will definitely get boosted up.
Interesting, sir. It's very interesting. I did not think of this. Now, since the labor has moved away from urban centers because of lack of factory jobs and lack of jobs in urban centers, but this labor is untrained in terms of agriculture, but of course it's present and therefore it can be gainfully employed. But will this result in depression of farm labor costs, and will it increase the profits for the farmers this year, especially because we have seen very good rains happening over the last 3 months, and so you see a kind of upswing in the kind of agriculture production happening over the next 4 to 5 months?
Definitely, but I think the agricultural distribution system is to be rationalized. Still, I tell you, the farmer doesn't get the fair price. The consumer cannot buy for a reasonable price. Still, the middlemen are eating away the major part of the cake. Okay?
Yes.
Suppose the kilo of brinjal, the farmer hardly gets 3 rupees or 4 rupees. Consumer has to pay 30 rupees. And who is eating away this 16 rupees in 15?
Yes, true.
So, village industries, cottage industries. If the government can, what shall I say, focus its attention on village industries, cottage industries, I'm sure that will give employment to these people who are displaced because of the, what shall I say, slowdown in the industrial sector. That will boost up the economy on one side, and that will well help these displaced workers.
And it also reduces the pressure on India's urban landscape.
Sure.
Absolutely. And also result in dispersion of employability factor to tier 2 towns and tier 3 towns. But also, when you talk of displacement of people from urban centers to rural centers, are you talking specifically, but you're not including the IT sector, because several, for example, several people who are in the IT sector in Hyderabad, they have moved back to their own hometowns like Nellore, Vijayawada, or even Nagpur or Pune or Mumbai or whichever city, or even Bangalore. We are talking now, this kind of segment moving to these towns, will it also result in their spending money in those towns and also increase in the kind of cash flow in these two cities, and probably that kind of cash flow can lead to creation of greater capital and reverse migration of capital from a mega city like Hyderabad to tier 2 towns?
Mr. Sunil, in fact, there are now more employment opportunities in IT sector because of robotics, the IoT, artificial
Intelligence, yes.
And now, I think it is the digital sector that is gaining momentum, and more employment opportunities are there now in this IT when compared to what shall I say, industrial
Sector, manufacturing and industry, yes.
And I think the employees the IT sector, the employees are getting burdened. I tell you, earlier they used to work from 10 to 5. Now they're working for 12 hours, 14 hours, at times 16 hours from home. Work from home is not a boon, it is a curse, I'm telling you. They are totally missing their social life.
I know what you're saying.
It is telling upon their health.
Yes.
And they are at home but not able to spend time with their family members.
Yes.
Working from home is not a boon. It's a rather a curse.
In fact, very interesting, because at one time, somebody who had got a work from home opportunity was considered very lucky. But now it has become a millstone.
They are getting glued to the what is called their laptops and
Phones.
locking them. It's actually locked down. They are locking themselves down in a room, not talking to their family members. They are not even going on time for their lunch.
Right.
Earlier they used to have, I think when in the offices, they used to have a lot of tea time, lunch time, evening tea time, chit-chatting. Okay, 8 hours work, I think practically they were doing 5 to 6 hours work.
Sir,
But now,
now it is
now
increased.
10 hours, 12 hours, even 14 hours work a day.
Right. Last question, sir. Very brief I also want. Do you think a kind of regulation is also required right now for work from home also? Do you think this kind of regulation will also happen?
Work from home should be at the choice of the employee, not at the choice of the employer.
Absolutely. Right.
I think that should take place. Otherwise, I think socially there will be a big problem.
Yes.
Problem.
Yes. Right.
Family
Yes.
bodies we thought, COVID-19, thanks to COVID-19, people are at home and they're enjoying lockdown period. It has brought people together, but this work from home is again taking
separating them.
away the family members, though they are at home physically, but psychologically, socially, they are not with their family members.
Right. Professor Das, we come to the end of this program. Thank you so much for joining us. It was such a short notice.
It's my
All the-
pleasure, Mr. Sunil. It's my pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
My greetings to all the viewers of CVR English News. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So that was economist Professor Das from Vijayawada, and he gave us some really interesting insights. You can also watch all these insights on our YouTube. And so this we come to the end of this special segment on Lifeline. Thank you for watching CVR English. I am Sunil Patel for CVR English.